Okay, welcome everyone to the May the 4th be with you 2021 Board of Education meeting. We'll start with laughter this month, why not? So welcome everyone. We will begin with Chaplain Vic Weaver with the Union County Sheriff Office invocation.
Father, we thank you for your love. We thank you for your mercy. And Father, tonight we ask that you just be with us and continue to bless us and just show us what we need to do to continually honor you, even in our work that we do, in our social activities, and in our elected office. Just help us to continually do what we're supposed to do. Father, we thank you, and we ask now that as the school year comes to a conclusion, that you would just be with the students as they will begin their year-end testing, be with the faculty. Father, be with the graduates that will graduate this year and go on either to college or to a vocation. Father, just be with them and just help them to know what they're supposed to do. We thank you so much for everything you've done for us. Continue to bless us, and as you always lead, guide, and direct us, Father, help us to listen, to follow, and to obey. And we thank you for all this and ask all this now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Weaver. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That brings us to the approval of the agenda. I move that we adopt the agenda.
So move.
Were we going to add?
Michelle added it on board docs.
Oh, okay.
It's
Is
up
number
there.
4?
It's up there. Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, I think we need to refresh the.
Okay, well, thank you for doing that. The board chair did not know. We will now have the John H. Crowder Service Award. Miss Kathy Heintel.
Did we vote?
And
No, we
second.
didn't vote.
I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good evening. The late John H. Crowder spent more than 30 years serving the children of Union County. As a living tribute to him and his legacy, the Union County Board of Education awards the John H. Crowder Service Award every month to an outstanding high school student who is making a difference in their school and community. Students who receive this award are not only academically successful, but also have an established history of community service. Due to social distancing guidelines, we are sharing these awards virtually. The winners will be recognized through a special online tribute that will be posted on the UCPS website and social media pages. Tonight, we award the John H. Tonight, we award the John H. Crowder Service Award for May to a Forest Hills High School senior who has an extraordinary willingness to serve her community through emergency medical services. Trinity LeGrand strongly believes in community service and giving back to the people and organizations who have helped shape her into the person she is becoming. Trinity is currently charged with leading fundraising efforts and budget Development as the treasurer and fundraising chair for the National Society of Leadership and Success. She is also the senior class secretary of Forest Hills High School Student Council, a member of the Union County NAACP Youth Council, and has led a petition for speed bumps in her neighborhood. Trinity also serves as a volunteer firefighter for the Wingate Volunteer Fire Department and is a member of the North Carolina Firefighter Association and the North Carolina Association of Rescue and Emergency Medical Services. Trinity passed the North Carolina Emergency Medical Technician Certification exam and plans to serve her community as an emergency medical technician after her 18th birthday. Upon graduation, she will receive an Associate of Arts and Associate of Science transfer degrees from South Piedmont Community College. She plans to pursue a degree in biology during her undergraduate studies and then plans to pursue a physician assistant degree so she can provide quality medical care to underserved communities and populations. In her spare time, it's amazing she has anything, she participates in varsity sports, including volleyball, basketball, and track, and also events to address food insecurity. Board members, please join me in congratulating Trinity LeGrand as the May 2021 recipient of the John H. Crowder Service Award.
That brings us to public comments. 30 minutes has been allotted for public comments. Community members wishing to speak during public comments should state their name prior to making other comments. The board will not hear in open session complaints about performance of school personnel, personnel issues, or confidential student issues. Individuals may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any person who is an appointed representative for a group may address the board for 5 minutes. Should a community member wish to seek information or share items that may not be shared during public comments, our staff are available to address your concerns or provide information. Dr. Brad Breedlove, Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Bashan Harris, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. And Jared McCraw, Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, are here to assist. Our first speaker tonight is Sarah Hamilton.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am here to defend parents' rights about how we want to raise our children. I am one of thousands of parents across the country stepping up to call out adults who have put our children through unjustified, unethical masking. This is a lie. It is being used as a weapon to create and instill fear, and it must stop. Studies prove masks do not work to prevent disease. Healthy immune systems do. As one study states, the data suggests that both medical and non-medical face masks are ineffective to block human-to-human transmission of viral and infectious disease. But in turn, wearing face masks have demonstrated to have substantial adverse psychological effects. So why are we doing this to our children? Why are so many adults too weak to defend them? I have emailed several of you over the last year and appreciate the kind words in response. But over the last month, every response goes a little something like this. We have no power. Email the people who do. But you do have power. You have power to stand up for what you believe in. If you believe masking our children is wrong, stop posting pictures of children and teachers wearing masks on school board social media pages or school websites. Let's talk about what you say does hold the power. The toolkit is mentioned all the time. If the governor has now given permission for us to breathe fresh air outside, why hasn't the toolkit been updated to reflect that? Why aren't they freeing our children and teachers from masks at recess and any other time outside? Have any of you pressured them to make the necessary changes? The last board meeting I watched from home, one person after the other laid their mask on the podium to speak. Each person took off their mask and placed it in the same exact spot, essentially contaminating themselves every time they put it back on. So if adults can be this reckless, what about our children in school? What happens if the mask comes off, drops on the bathroom floor, classroom floor, another child touches their mask, just wipe their nose or face? Can you really tell me a germ-infested mask is better than none at all? I would also like to point out that yesterday in my home state of Florida, Governor DeSantis essentially put the entire state back to normal. No emergency orders and everything as it was prior to March last year. But schools are refusing to change anything relating to mask distancing in schools. So if school boards can defy one way, why can't they defy the other way? I will leave you with this. My daughter said something that shook me to my core. Mom, I feel like I was a pretty good judge of character before all of this. But now, with masks, I can't tell the good people from the bad. Remove the masks. Lead by faith instead of fear. Thank you.
Next is Richard Daunt.
Good evening. Many of you will remember that after September 11, 2001, we had to conquer our fear. We need to do the same today. We've had a lot of good news lately, but we still have a pandemic of fear. In other parts of the country and the world, we can see abundant real-world evidence that unmasked kids and their teachers are safe. Union County teachers have all had the chance to be vaccinated if they wish. Deaths and hospitalizations have been dropping for months. Are we allergic to good news? I'll take all those masked faces as a yes. What are teachers and students seeing in each other's faces? Almost nothing. The personal connection has been crushed by masks. Our kids won't get these developmentally crucial years back. We're creating a generation of paranoid hypochondriacs. The board is concerned about losing taxpayer money if they defy the governor and he successfully sues, but what do you think the parents of Union County would rather risk? Their money or their kids? Are you here to do the will of the Union County residents or the will of the governor? Local control can't be wished back. It has to be taken. You know, in the early days of North Carolina, it was referred to as a hornet's nest of rebellion, and that's where the name the Hornets comes from. What happened to the Hornets? In reality, it's the governor who's in rebellion against our liberty. Let's move forward into a great new normal. Not the old normal, but the wonderful new normal in which we realize how much teachers and students miss seeing each other's smiling faces. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brian Helms.
Hello, good evening. My name is Brian Helms, 1421 Bradley Drive. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight, and thank each of you for your contributions. I can only imagine the difficulty that each of you has endured over the course of the last year for the sake of our children. But we have more work to do. I have lived in Union County my whole life, and to be clear, I'm here today because I have two children, one in kindergarten and one who's going to be enrolling in 2022. I'm here to speak for my children and for all of the children in this county. By now, my hope is this board has already reviewed the tremendous amount of research available that indicates that children have an extremely low chance of catching or transmitting COVID-19. I hope that the board has looked at examples of private schools operating without mask requirements and long waiting lists for children to be enrolled in those environments. But yet, even with Governor Cooper's latest executive order, certain elementary schools in this county are still requiring masks for outdoor events. This is unacceptable. Mask mandates, proposed required vaccines, and Marxist ideology is unacceptable in Union County. You know what else is unacceptable? My daughter is doing remote kindergarten this year. Listen to that for a minute. Remote kindergarten. This is supposed to be the best year for her, but she's been robbed of this. And she's doing remote kindergarten because her mother and I refuse to force her to wear a mask for 7.5 hours a day when she complains that she can't breathe. Masks for a 5-year-old are unacceptable. They're driven because no one will stand up against the ridiculous mandates and politically driven fear. Now, I would challenge this board to adhere to the same requirements that you expect of our kids. Mask mandates are not law. Laws are created through legislative process, not by executive orders or guidance from health departments. The CDC, Big Pharma, and other health bureaucrats should not be allowed to replace our elected officials. I'm here because it is my responsibility to speak up for my children and my family. Each member of this board has been elected to represent our children and their best interest. Each member has a personal responsibility to the children of this county. And just like I will be held accountable to my family, you guys will be held accountable to the voters. I, just like many others, voted for you to represent our kids. But it's not just the adults who voted. My 5-year-old voted too. Right here's her ballot. Some of your names are on it. Now, she did this because we have taught her the importance of voting for people that you feel will not let you down. I challenge you to be accountable and don't let her down. I challenge you to lead from the front and push against Roy Cooper's mandates.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm asking our
Helms.
kids.
Deb Helms.
Good evening. My name is Deb Helms, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm going to try to keep it together because this is very upsetting for me. Having instructed this child remotely through kindergarten this year and seeing what she has missed out on, she has missed out on her first very precious fun year of school. And she has done so because as a family, we had to make the decision that it wasn't good for her health to sit there for 7 hours a day. When we were put in that position that we had to make the decision a few days before that, she said, Mommy, she had spent some time on campus. She said, Mommy, I sneezed in my mask at school the other day and it got yucky. I said, well, did you change your mask? No. I said, why not? Because we're not allowed to take our masks off. She sat there and breathed in the mucus that her body was trying to expel. For how long, I don't know. And it's because she is 5 years old and she doesn't know and she doesn't want to go against the rules. It was such a hard decision, but they don't understand. But the concern for their physical health is real. Dr. Fauci himself, when he was researching SARS, in 2005, he looked back at the Spanish flu in 1918. His belief was that a lot of the fatalities from the Spanish flu was caused by bacterial pneumonia from breathing through dirty masks. We are covering them, and we are expecting these 5-year-olds to be responsible for the sanitation of the piece of cloth that is covering their respiratory system, and that is not okay. 5-year-olds need to be able to see their teacher's expression. That is how they learn proper pronunciation. That is how they learn verbal and nonverbal communication skills. They can't learn that when they can't see their teacher's face. The thought of sending my child for her first day of school to a teacher who she couldn't see her teacher greet her with a smile on her face and with a big hug and comfort her if she was upset. It's not okay. We can't put the burden on these children to carry that weight. Have any of you ever worn a mask for 7 straight hours and not taken it off and gone outside and done rigorous activity in 80-degree humidity weather? Yet we expect our children to do this every single day. That shouldn't be okay with anyone. The responsibility is on us. We can do better and we have to do better. Thank you so much for the work that you've done, but we have to keep pushing. We can't sit and wait for Dr. Cohen to update the toolkit. The CDC recommends masks to 2 years old. There have been plenty of preschools and daycares, private schools, and even 10 minutes down the road in South Carolina. They have been in school full-time with no mask and have had very minimal issues reported. If they can do it, so can we. You guys led from the beginning. We were the first district in this area to go back to in-person learning. You led from the beginning, and you need to do it now. Please. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brittany Bolden. And Ms. Bolden, you will have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, can y'all hear me? Okay. Good evening. My name is Brittany Bolden, and I am the Union County Chair of Moms for Liberty, an organization that is dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. We just launched this chapter a week ago and are already over 100 members strong and growing daily. I think based on that, it's safe to say that parents are mobilizing. First, I want to take a moment to thank every one of you who serve on this board. We just moved back to Charlotte in August and specifically chose Union County based on how this school board has handled the pandemic response. In what I imagine has felt like an impossible situation with Governor Cooper's mandates, you were able to get our kids back to school safely and in the least restrictive environment as possible. From the bottom of this mom's heart, thank you. Recently, our state school board decided on new social studies standards. These standards contain language that is commonly used with a very dangerous and deceptive ideology that is quickly infiltrating many of our country's institutions. Even worse, it is being championed by popular culture, Hollywood, and professional sports. This ideology goes by many names: critical race theory, wokeism, and anti-racism, to name a few. But make no mistake, it is Marxism. Marx's original strategy divided the populace by class. This new installation divides people by race and ethnic groups. Simply put, it's identity-based Marxism teaching its followers to look at everything through a lens of race and power. This repackaged version is purposefully set up to make a villain out of anyone who doesn't agree. They cleverly chose names and phrases that make you look bad if you say that you are against it, making it hard to fight. Nobody wants to say that they're against anti-racism because then you look like a racist. But when you look into the principles that anti-racism stands for, you realize that it is actually promoting the very thing that its name claims it's against: racism. During the 20th century, countries like Soviet Union, China, Cambodia, and Cuba underwent Marxist-style revolutions, eventually falling to socialist governments. These regimes were collectively responsible for killing 100 million of their own people through show trial executions and mass starvation. There are mountains of evidence clearly illustrating that in practice, Marxist idea unleashed man's darkest brutalities. After watching this past year unfold and doing extensive research, I'm here to tell you that this new and so-called improved version of Marxism is on its own path of destruction. The way this plays out in the real world is that people are separated into two groups. People with white skin are said to be the oppressors holding all the power. People with brown skin are said to be the oppressed and powerless. The color of your skin is the only factor used to determine which group you belong to. Individual factors like behaviors, life situations, and socioeconomic status have no bearing on your group placement. People with white skin are told that they are inherently racist and responsible for all racism on a whole, thus making them the constant villain. People with brown skin are told that it is not possible for them to be racist, and everything bad in their lives can be linked back to the systemic racism supported and implemented by whites, thus making them the constant victim. Here are some examples from an investigative reporter called Christopher Rufo. In Cupertino, California, an elementary school forced first graders to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities and rank themselves according to their power and privilege. In Springfield, Missouri, a middle school forced teachers to locate themselves on an oppression matrix based on the idea that straight, white, English-speaking Christian males are members of the oppressor class and must atone for their privilege and covert white supremacy. In Philadelphia, an elementary school forced fifth graders to celebrate Black communism and simulate a Black Power rally to free 1960s radical Angela Davis from prison, where she had once been held on charges of murder. Mr. Rufo is only one investigative journalist, but he has developed a database of more than 1,000 of these stories. So what do messages like this do to people in general, but but more specifically to our children? Well, for the white children, it will create an environment that breeds shame, self-hatred, and eventually resentment towards people of color. For the children of color, it will teach them that they have no personal responsibility for anything that happens to them, causing them to feel powerless and ultimately adopt a victim mentality. For the two groups collectively, they will have successfully been taught to hate each other. Historically speaking, what typically happens when two groups are taught to resent and hate each other? Well, history provides irrefutable evidence that this road leads to massive death and destruction 100% of the time. By teaching this ideology to our children, we are putting them together on a high-speed train to hell on earth. I acknowledge that there are many issues in our nation that need to be fixed. I also acknowledge that I don't have all the answers. What I do know is that critical race theory is not the answer, and Moms for Liberty is committed to preventing this message from impacting our nation's children. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Juliana Martin.
Hello, I'm Juliana. Thank you for having me. Can't follow that very well, but I stand in front of you today absolutely terrified, not only because of public speaking, but over the fear of backlash and where the school system is headed. However, I can no longer stay silent and hope someone will take up the reins and say no more. No more masking in our political agenda in our kids' curriculum. Diversity, inclusion, and equity are three words I keep hearing and three words that are counterproductive. The Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity and other groups, one of which I believe is speaking later, are pushing ideas that history fought against. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." My kids go to Union Academy, which I know is outside of your jurisdiction, but they are a school, character school. And unfortunately, they are pushing diversity, inclusion, and equity. Today, they asked me in a parent survey if my kids would benefit from the school having a diverse staff. My answer is no. My child and everyone's child will benefit from having qualified staff and teachers. So where are we headed? Critical race theory. It was rewritten to get adopted in North Carolina, and they are rewriting history as we speak. They have been doing it since I graduated 13 years ago. 13 years ago, I had little knowledge of history. They told me about Hitler and the Holocaust and how that was bad. But no one told me Stalin was a socialist that killed 3 times as many of his own people. And today, we are wanting to push the U.S. towards socialism. I was told slavery was bad, but no one told me that our country fought to end slavery in unprecedented times. They're rewriting history. They're leaving out the good and only putting out the bad for everyone to see. I say no more divisive diversity and inclusion talk. Give us quality over diversity. I say no more, and I encourage every parent to say no more. I hope you all will help us fight this fight. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michelle Cameron.
I have a child in middle school and another in high school. Both my kids have asthma and find it difficult to breathe in masks. My kids get told daily to pull up their mask over their nose, even though they can't breathe. I know there's an option for remote learning, but my kids like to socialize, and my son has ADHD and cannot learn in a remote learning situation. My kids no longer like school. They feel that they cannot speak, smile. They feel muzzled. They say no one talks because we can't hear each other anyway, so what's the point? What have we done to our children? Haven't they suffered enough? We know kids are rarely affected by COVID, so why are we punishing them? Take the masks off our children. Breathing your own waste all day long, 5 days a week for 8 hours is dangerous and criminal. Both my kids complain of daily headaches and dizziness when they come home from school. My next concern is the COVID vaccine. I was a pharmaceutical rep for 8 years working for Big Pharma, and I sold antibiotics. No drug was brought to market before 5 to 7 years of long, extensive clinical trials. Even after many years of clinical trials, drugs are taken off the market because they are not safe. This vaccine is experimental. We don't know the long-term side effects. We are using our precious babies as guinea pigs. I and many others will not comply. The schools will be empty. No parent would subject their children to an experimental drug. What happened to my body, my choice? Spare our children and give them back their childhood and their freedoms. This is America, the last I checked. And our children need us to be advocates for them. All our children are asking us, when will this end? When can I be around my friends without a mask? We will never know the psychological and physical damage this pandemic has caused our children. I'm asking you to be an advocate for our kids and stand up for their rights and freedoms. This is your opportunity to do the right thing. Hear their cries for help and let them go back to some type of normalcy. We don't want to see our kids sick down the road because of this vaccine, and we as parents do not fight to protect them. When do they get a say? My question to the board is, will you take these masks off our children? And will you defend their right not to be vaccinated and be used as guinea pigs? Thank you.
Our last speaker tonight is Courtney Eney. Okay, I can see that now.
Hi, my name is Courtney Early. I came unprepared tonight. I did not expect to speak. However, here I am. I speak on the behalf of my two children. My son, he's a kindergartner. My daughter, and she is in second grade. Every day, they go to school with the mask on. As do I go to work every day with the mask on. But this piece of cloth is not going to do anything. It's not going to save you from anything. It's useless. The toolkit says to take these masks off of our kids. I just want to know why it hasn't been updated yet. I'm not a very good personal speaker, so I'm sorry if I seem flustered. But every time that I have to put the mask on my two children, my heart breaks every single time. My son, he is a bright young boy, so handsome. His teachers can't even see him smile. My daughter is brilliant, but yet she's being muzzled by this right here. It's unfair to our children to keep them like this. Please take these things off of our kids. Take them off of my children, because I would do it. I do not make them wear that when they're with me. When they are with me in public, that's garbage. They don't wear that. I don't wear it. Please, I'm begging you, take these off my kids.
Thank you. That concludes public speaking for the night, and that brings us to number 4. I thought we were having an update, but I see meeting minutes on the agenda, so.
It's updated in the board docs.
Okay. Okay, then, I thought it was said earlier it was updated, so. Okay,
It
so.
shows updated in board docs.
Do you want my computer?
No, I'm fine. It's just, I was told it was updated and it's
Okay.
not,
I see what
it's
you're
not
saying.
up there.
Yeah.
So number 4, disregard what's on the screen. Number 4, we will have a mask update.
So we heard some things tonight that we have the power to do something, and we need a legislative process, not order. The toolkit has not been updated yet. We've been checking it all day long. We're hoping that in the next day or two, they're going to update it. But I want to talk about about what the school board can and cannot do. There is a session law passed by the state legislature that's 2020-49 that requires, and I can read it to you, the public school units shall ensure that it is in compliance with all required COVID-19 guidance related to the operation of elementary and secondary schools issued by the State Board of Education, the Department of Public Instruction, and the Department of Health and Human Services. The second one that I want to point everyone to is 2020-89 session lesson. So these were passed last summer. This states that this is limited, COVID-19 limited immunity, and any claim for relief arising from any act or omission alleged to have resulted in the contraction of COVID-19, including any claim based on violation of subsection B of this section, no person shall be liable for any act or omission that does not amount to gross negligent, willful or wanton conduct or intentional wrongdoing. The last one I'm going to point you out to is 2021-4, which is new this year. It's the act to provide access to in-person learning for students in grades kindergarten through 12. Section 2, subsection 1 states that local school administrative units shall comply with all requirements of the Strong Schools NC Public Health Toolkit K through 12, as that guidance existed on March 4, 2021. So I understand what everybody is saying, and I think our board understands what people are saying to us, but we have to comply during the instructional day with the rules in the toolkit. And it's by state legislation.
Madam Chair, if I may, what this means is if we fail to comply, school systems are given an umbrella of immunity. And if we fail to comply with the law, that means that immunity goes away. That means potentially, if we allowed students to make a personal choice to refuse to wear a mask, and let's say that child gets sick, or that child, somebody in the family gets sick, and then they are able to bring a legal action against us as a school system, and we would be unable to claim the immunity, most likely would not have insurance protection because your insurer is not going to protect you if you do something that is against law or guidelines or the procedures that you're required to follow by the law. So basically, the taxpayers of Union County would be on the hook for a defense cost and any finding if we were found in a court of law to be liable or negligent and allowed this to happen. Now, here's the hard part. Last Friday, the governor said no mask requirement outdoors. He said it. But some bozo in Raleigh hasn't updated a website to let us off the hook to be able to do it.
Right. Because none of the session laws that I talked about didn't talk about the governor's orders. They talked about the toolkit, which is under the auspices of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. Sides is correct.
And this is under the governor's office. So he's out here saying one thing, and an office under his control doesn't have a clue. And this has been Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and here we are the end of Tuesday. And somebody can't click in a couple keystrokes and update a website. Give me a break. This is ridiculous. Masks, personally, I think are a joke. How many people wear these things more than one day? Huh? I've probably been wearing this thing for a week because it's probably the only one I can find in my car. So it sits in a glove compartment. Who's dropped their mask? Who sneezed in it? Who's coughed in it? Whatever. That's my personal thought. But as a elected member of this board, I am upset with my state government that they can't get their act together. And I feel powerless, absolutely powerless to do anything about it without exposing the taxpayers of Union County to a potential financial exposure. And I'll be honest with you, I would do it in a heartbeat if I didn't think, but if one kid or one family member would have any kind of health repercussions, they said, well, they weren't wearing a mask. It's your fault. I can't take that chance for all of our 40,000 plus students and 5,000 staff. So I implore everyone, not just the folks that spoke here, but everyone that is frustrated with this, to vent your frustration on the proper people in Raleigh that are holding this deal up. Flood the governor's office, tell him to call Mandy Cohen and tell her to get her, whoever the Yahoo is that's supposed to be updating the website, to get on it. Thank you.
Yeah, Madam, go ahead, Madam Chair. No, you want to speak?
I was just going to thank you, Mr. Sides, for your comments. I know Mr. McCraw is here with us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the press conference was on Wednesday and Dr. Cohen and Governor Cooper both repeatedly announced that 5 o'clock Friday, there was no more, you did not have to wear a mask after 5 p.m. Friday. So that was announced on Wednesday. So Thursday, I contacted Mr. McCraw, and I believe even Friday, I followed up with you because I knew that our student athletes would be playing many different sports Friday after 5, and would our athletes after 5 o'clock, could they take their mask off? And you told me that you had not received word that the toolkit had been updated. So we had athletes all weekend and no update from Raleigh. So I followed up with you again on Monday, Mr. McCraw, and I know other board members have as well. And would you like to share the phone calls or emails and everything that you and Mr. Joyner, because I know that you and Dennis Joyner with the county, DHHS, have actively been working together trying to get some kind of update. Can you share that with us tonight?
Yes. Ms. Merrill, we have continuously been looking at the Strong Schools Toolkit online. The last update is March 24th of 2021. Dr. Houlihan and I have talked continuously during the day because the governor in his announcement did say as of Friday, outdoor mask or face covering guidance was no longer required.
And he didn't have any stipulations on that. I mean, it wasn't, it was all outdoor activity. There were
Correct.
no barriers.
But we have been following the Strong Schools Toolkit since the beginning of the pandemic. After talking with Ms. Morris, our general counsel, in the legislation, as Ms. Heintel said, we're required to follow the face covering guidance in the Strong Schools
By
Toolkit.
state law.
Yes.
Not an executive order, not a mandate. It is session law that our representatives and senators approved.
It is. And we're prepared whenever the update is made to get the information out to our principals as soon as possible. And we will update our principals on the outdoor face covering guidance. But currently, the Strong Schools Toolkit that we're required to follow has not been updated.
So when I spoke with you yesterday, I believe you communicated to me that you or Mr. Joyner had been informed that the toolkit would be updated on Tuesday.
We were in a webinar this morning with DHHS, the leaders, and DPI. They said this morning that they would try to get the toolkit updated by the end of day today, but it may be the end of the week before they get it updated. That was what I understood from the webinar this morning. So we've been monitoring it. We've all talked, many of us. We're ready to make the updates with our principals as soon as for the school day. The High School Athletic Association has followed the governor's guidance for athletic events and the after-school athletic events. So that guidance has been updated for athletic events. But during the school day, the guidance was supposed to be updated by the end of the day today or by the end of the week is what they project. So we're prepared as soon as it's updated.
So I just want it on the record to this board and every Union County person to know that our team, our employees have been actively and aggressively working with our Union County partners, our state partners, trying to get this toolkit updated from a press conference last Wednesday. And we've been having press conferences for about 14, 15 months now. And this is the first governor's press conference that as soon as he walked off the stage, that website wasn't updated. So here we are, a public school district dependent on protection from limited immunity because we are getting updates each day that students or staff are testing positive. You send that report to us every day, and it's on our website. We update it every Friday. So here we are with a governor and representatives in Raleigh that are holding us hostage by passing state law. And we're dependent on that protection in the event that an employee or a student does get sick, and heaven forbid, someone winds up on a breathing machine or intubated or worse, and we're trying to protect ourselves, our 5,000 employees, our 40,000 students, and all the people that they get. When one person tests positive, it probably knocks out, 30, 50 exposures that are also put on quarantine. So we could be blamed and held responsible for all of that because of state law, not an executive order, not a mandate, but state law. This is very, very different from things that this board may have worked against, last spring. And so, Jared, thank you. Thank you for that.
These session laws didn't exist last year until after schools were over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank God for the public comment section, and there is a reason that we have them on here, is so that we can hear from the public. But it only works if we hear the public. And the first speaker used the phrase, she said that we led from the beginning, in the beginning. And then she ended with this: Lead by faith instead of fear. The second gentleman, he declared some historical information that I wasn't aware of. He declared that the citizens of North Carolina at a time were to be said stirring up a hornet's nest. Henceforth, the name of the local basketball team here, the Charlotte Hornets. And he, I believe, even declared about we led from the beginning. Someone quoted that the state of Florida, the governor there, has ended all of the mandates, including the mask. But school systems, according to the speaker, and knowing school systems, I can, without much research, probably can agree to some extent, did not all follow what the governor said. They made their decision to go against what the governor said. I don't hear of any news organizations decrying the school systems in the state of Florida for defying their governor. Now, here in the great state of North Carolina, my home, place of my birth, the Tar Heel state, the tough state, our governor has finally gotten on board and declared that masks are no longer necessary for outdoor activity. And as our chair has so excellently proclaimed, she did not hear, we've not read about any restrictions on what he said. Hornets, stirring up a hornet's nest. We did lead from the beginning. I'm a pastor. And in March 17th, 2020, when the governor came out with his mandates, there were some we adopted, some, the protocols, the cleaning, which we were already doing, but just increased it. But I did not announce in the local assembly a mask mandate. Now, it's been over a year, and there's not been one person in that church that came to that church regularly that caused that church to have to shut down. A hornet's nest. Well, I used to be a Peter. If y'all know your Bible, Peter was rough. Peter would slice off an ear. But I became a Paul, more reserved. But Peter still lives. Peter lives tonight. The hornet's nest is stirred. Madam Chair, I motion that we follow the governor's words and allow masks to be removed for outside activity.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. It's open for comments or input from the board members.
I just want to make sure everybody's aware of the potential consequences of doing this.
We could subject the school system to lawsuits and without, I can't.
This is very hard. This is something that is beyond our control, and we sit here and try and do what we know is right for these kids, and we can't do it because, like I said, others can't update a website in a timely fashion. But we are handcuffed by the legislation, by the law. This is not just a suggestion. This is the law. This is a terrible contradiction. When your governor comes out and says, no, you don't have to do it anymore, but somebody doesn't update a website, the details are what's getting us. And here we sit and we hear these people, and we've received other emails, and we see it with our own eyes, and we want to do something. I understand. Nobody wants to do something more than I do. This is crazy land. But, last year I made a motion to allow in-person graduation. But that move was not against law. It was the governor's edict, which we decided, this board, not everybody was here, but this board voted to move forward with. This is different. This is, in my mind, very different. And I am terribly concerned about where we're going here.
I want to clarify, did your motion say indoors or outdoors, or did it specify
Outdoor activity
outdoor activity? Okay.
during school.
Are there any other comments or input from board members?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I think that, and I hear everyone, and even the individuals who spoke a few moments ago, hearing what they said is pushed. And there's a lot of things that's going on nationally that I don't agree with. I mean, we're in a political climate, and the truth of the matter is politics plays a lot in everything that we do. But the truth of the matter is our children need to be safe. Our students our faculty need to be safe. Reverend Benjamin, I'm a pastor as well, you know that, and I don't have that testimony that no one got COVID in my church. We had over 20 people to get COVID in our church. When it first hit, I had a family member who was a faithful member of our church who died, 40 years old, from COVID. I was sitting here calculating all of the individuals that I know personally who have died from COVID-19. I had it, my wife had it, my mother had it, my sister had it, her children had it. I can go through the list of individuals. And are these masks uncomfortable? Very much so. I don't like them myself. It's a struggle for me as well. But at the end of the day, we wanted the kids to come back to school, and they're here. And every day we get emails about kids and teachers who have tested positive for COVID. Now, do I think that one lady said about what keeps COVID from transferring is healthy immune systems? Absolutely. But we know that there are people who do not take care of their bodies. So because we are dealing with a society of individuals who don't take vitamins, who don't eat right, all of us have to suffer for a period of time. I pray that this time will eventually be over before the kids go back to school in August. I really do, where they can go back to school and hopefully everybody will be vaccinated. And the truth of the matter is, just because you get a vaccine don't mean you are exempt from getting it. So we're in a very, very challenging situation. And I hear what you all are saying. God knows I do. And I hear what those parents were saying, and I respect them for their stance. But at the end of the day, not even just dealing with the law. If we step out there and do that because we want to be a Peter, and one of these kids gets sick and somebody dies, and if they get home, because again, children do carry COVID. I don't know where people are getting this from, but children can get it too. Anybody can get it. It's the flu on steroids. That's how I look at it. And if a child can get the flu, guess what? They can get COVID. So why can we not just finish this school year out? Let these kids keep these masks on. Let us be safe. Let us keep ourselves out of trouble so that we won't have to deal with something that at the end of the day, we really are not ready to handle. Because if somebody dies on our watch because we want kids to not to have masks, I promise you, that's not going to be good. And we do not want that to come back on this board, Dr. Houlihan, the staff, because we want to be a Peter or we want to prove a point. When you go home, take your mask off. I do not wear the same mask every day. So for those children who wear the same mask every day, that's not healthy. Wear a different mask every day. There are just some things we got to figure out until we can figure it out. So, I mean, I don't think we need to go that route. I don't think, I hear what you're saying, but are we really ready to deal with what can happen? Because if people are getting sick, you better believe people are dying. And I don't want nobody to die on my watch, on our watch at all. As a school board, do we all agree? No, we do not. But I want all of us to make sure that we are safe and we don't have to deal with extra drama. We already have to deal with it when we don't agree on stuff sometimes. So as it pertains to that right there, I don't think we need to go that route. We need to leave it alone until the state says whatever they're going to say and listen, because at the end of the day also, if we are becoming defiant, we are raising up a generation that is already defiant and teaching them not to obey the laws of the land. And that's not what we need to do. So that's my.
Thank you, Reverend Kirkpatrick. I think the challenge here is that the governor has said that effective last week, you no longer needed to wear a mask outside Friday at 5 o'clock. And here we are 5 days later, and we're just waiting on a website when the governor has already stated that you no longer have to wear one outside. So are there any other comments?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have a lot of calls with like the big school systems in North Carolina. I mean, what is everyone else saying about the fact that we don't have the toolkit and that's what we're waiting on?
All of us in our most recent calls have been advocating strongly for the toolkit to be updated at the exact same moment that a change is made by the governor's office or DHHS, because we're all facing these same questions from our constituents. He has said this, but why are you not allowing this to happen? And all of our collective responses have been what you've heard tonight about what session law currently requires us to do. So I am daily advocating, so is Mr. McCraw and other superintendents, that on a more frequent and timely basis, that the toolkit be updated based on when guidance changes. And that has been our advocacy from day one.
But my problem is they said it would be updated today. It wasn't. And we are 15 months down the road from COVID, and every other comment that the governor has made, the toolkit got updated. So is this just a game? I mean, it's been updated every other time he walked off the stage. So why is it not effective last Friday at 5 o'clock? I think it is absolutely silly that we are held hostage because a website hadn't been updated when it came from the governor's mouth and Dr. Cohen's mouth.
Madam Chair, well, I tell you, if I was choosing a team to take in the battle, one of my first recruits would be Reverend Kilpatrick. His passion is noteworthy. But just know, I just want him and everybody else to know that I don't do things to make points. And And every now and then, you do have to be Peter. The great John Lewis said, good trouble. Well, there are times when we have good trouble. There are times when there was a whole lot of things that was law. I'm not advocating breaking the law. I'm advocating doing what the governor said. That's what my motion is based on, is doing what the governor said. He said that. He declared that. I understand all of the legalese as far as the toolkit piece. I'm just making a motion on what the governor said. And, you know, those parents, if we can't be moved by public comments, then we don't need to have them. If we can't be moved by the emails we read, and there's a lot of emails that we all know that are just not worth the thing that they were sent on. But then there are some you get, like when I got one from a teacher that invited me to come to her class. I'm sure she was shocked when I accepted the invitation. But I spent a whole day in the 7th grade classroom a few weeks ago, and I enjoyed myself. I don't want to live by fear. And I don't want folks to think that I lead by fear. I eulogized my cousin who died from COVID. And like Reverend Kilpatrick, we all got our list of people that we know. And notice I said that there was no one that caught COVID from our church that caused our church to have to shut down. There were people who are from our church who did not come to church, but they caught the COVID. But they didn't never come to church. They stayed away from the church as a protective mechanism, but they caught the COVID. So when we get these reports from Mr. Jarrett, I don't believe we've gotten one report from somebody that contracted COVID that didn't have on a mask. So if, as even Reverend Kilpatrick has stated, nothing is 100%. So we're not living in a world where one thing is a protective mechanism. And so the governor has determined through all of his knowledge and with Dr. Cohen and the good folks up there that we don't need the mask for outside activity. I did not motion that we take masks off altogether, just for the outside activity. When little Johnny and little Sally are running around outside playing. That is all. That is the extent, the beginning and end of my motion.
Thank you. Ms. Hindhill?
So personally, if I was sitting here as just myself, I would say I agree, except that none of the session laws refer to governor's orders. None of them. And I think, and people can disagree with me, that the governor's orders are like a law, but now we have conflicting laws. As a former lawyer, if it was just for me, I would do this. But as a board and board members, we oversee the Union County Public Schools, and I don't want to do something that would not be part of the laws that we are working under. Those 3 session laws say the same thing. And I don't know how we do that as the board members of Union County Public Schools. If it said the governor's order, maybe that would be different. It doesn't say it. And like Dr. Houlihan said, there's other large school districts that aren't doing it either. Do I think it's stupid that we're waiting for a website to update? Yes, I do. But I don't think that we should. That we should be doing that when there's session laws that say we shouldn't.
My only comment, I'm not going to make that comment. Are there any other comments, Mr. Helms, Mr. Price? No? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? 3. Can I finish the vote? Okay, I'm going to start over. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Mr. Sides, we're waiting for your vote. I'm sorry, can you speak into your mic?
I reluctantly feel like it's necessary to vote no.
Okay, so the motion fails. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to minutes from April 13th and April 20th.
I move that we approve the open session minutes from April 13th and April 20th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That brings us to the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will now have the Stallings Elementary School proposed developer sewer line, and I would ask Mr. Dave Burnett to please come forward.
Good evening, everyone. I will let me call your attention to this attachment that's been placed on your tables. You can take a look at that. This was in the package. However, I do understand that probably it's difficult to read. It was the second sheet. It was all black and white. What we did do was just highlighted the sewer, proposed sewer easement and the property boundary. So the sewer easement is in pink and the property boundary is in green. And I'll come back to this. I did want to give a brief overview of the project and the proposed developer sewer line, and then we'll come back to the graphic.
I'm sorry, can we pause for a minute? Is there a problem?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you. Broad Street Homes, Inc. is a residential developer. They're proposing to develop a 40-unit Sawmill Run subdivision adjacent to Stallings Elementary School. They are seeking an agreement with this board for the board to convey easements to Union County Public Works for a public sewer line that would cross the Stallings Elementary School campus, and it would serve the Sawmill Run development. Broad Street is offering $30,048 for permanent utility easement area and temporary construction easement areas. The developer plans to construct the sewer line, as we understand it, in the summer of 2022. Let me note that the process, as noted by Union County Public Works, is for the developer to reach an agreement with the landowner, which is us, and then have their sketch plan and construction plans approved by Union County Public Works. But one thing I did want to make sure everyone was aware of is that that alignment certainly can change during that review. For those folks who are not familiar with permanent easements, they run with the land, so it is permanent. For our intents and purposes, we could consider it really forever. So there's no grading, no tree planting, no structures. We can't build anything. We can't place anything, any structures on the easement. So with that, I'll describe, if you can look at me at the same time. As I had noted, the pink is the proposed sewer easement. What it does is it's going in between the school building, which you see, which is slightly shaded in, to the, as you hold the paper like this, to the right is the bus parking lot. To the left of the building is the staff parking lot, the staff and visitor lot. On the other side of the easement are the ball fields. It's the baseball field and the soccer field. The easement then does run along the property line between the school and a neighborhood. That, if you're familiar with that school, that's where the berm is. It's a landscaped berm. And so that's where that proposed alignment is. Happy to answer any questions.
This has come to facilities since December. And we have all talked about it, I think, every month since December. We took a vote at our last facilities committee in April, and it was a 2-2 vote. Yeah. Some of the reasons that we talked about, or some of the things that we talked about in committee, were things like the length of the easement that goes across our land and all the way around the back of it and kind of through it. I think we use the word traverse instead of cuts through it, so I'll use that word. It ends up at close to the the playground. What else was there? I think that was it. But we discussed this a long time. I have a question for you. In the agreement for the easement, number 12 says that the agreement, that the grantee, which is the developer, shall have the right to assign its rights under this agreement without the consent of the grantor. And upon such assignment and acceptance, they'll be released from the developer would be released from all further liabilities and obligations hereunder. Is that typical? Because is that just to allow it to go to the public works, or could they really just give it to anybody else if they didn't build on the land?
Sorry. As I understand that, they could sell the development to somebody else, and they pick up and have the ability to utilize the easement that's in place.
Is that typical in an easement agreement?
I can't say whether it's typical.
Okay, I don't like that at all.
Mr. Burnett, what is staff's recommendation?
So staff did not have a recommendation on this.
You can't get out.
Well, to answer your question, this came without a recommendation, either up or down.
Were any of the routes looked at versus going right across the center of our property?
So in fact, the committee, had very much wanted to explore other options and had asked me to work with Union County Public Works and with the developer to explore what were the other options, and did they have merit? Was there any other possibility? Union County Public Works had noted that there were other options as far as other routes. The developer had explored those routes, and what I would say, in translation, I think the best way to describe the response is that this was the only option that was economically feasible for a 40-home subdivision. That the price for the other options was higher, and then they would have to sell the houses at a higher price point than what they would believe that they could get in that market.
Any benefit to Union County Public Schools for easement?
No.
So I have served on facilities for almost 7 years. And I will say in all of my 7 years, every easement that has come to us in facilities has been approved. So I was really shocked that there was so much contention with this request. And I do recognize the differences. And I will say that our facilities department has been communicating with Broad Street for a year and a half. And every time facilities has given a recommendation to this developer, the developer has agreed and worked and taken all of the advice that they have received. They have actually offered more than the appraised value in order to do this. And Mr. Helms made the motion to approve this or last month.
No, you made the motion, he seconded.
No, I did not.
Yes. Yes.
Matt made the motion.
No. You made, at facilities?
Yes.
You made the motion,
And
he
he
seconded.
seconded.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yep.
We'll go with that. So two of us voted yes to take the higher offer and move forward on the fact of good faith that this developer had worked with the facilities department and taken and all the recommendations they had received and put it in the offer and then offered more. I know that our facilities department has made other agreements over the years and even in the past couple of years with other builders for sidewalks or any other thing that facilities said, well, this would benefit our school, and so they wrote it in. And for some unusual reason, this one has not gone through, even though I believe that the developer has attempted many times, well, what would you accept? Okay, we'll put that in. What would you accept? They put that in. And that's why it has come back to facilities over and over. And I'm truly just really confused because in all of the sewer agreements, again, for the last 7 years that I have seen, have been recommended and approved. And so because this continues to be so divisive in the facilities committee, and now we've got a 2-2 vote, so it failed, we are here tonight to bring it to the full board.
The appraised value was $27,293 and they're offering $30,048. I've been here for 4 years and we've done, the only easement that we've done was that I've done is a storm water easement on the edge of the Rocky River Elementary, and it was on the edge of it. And the benefit that we got from it was to take that, they took down some trees that are on the edge of the property. The other ones was Rayview Elementary, the 911 tower and the fire station. Was that a stormwater or a sewer easement? Do you remember?
The Rayview easement for those through Wesley Chapel Fire Department.
Yeah.
And that was a sewer easement.
Which those benefit Union County Public Schools and Union County taxpayers as a whole. For me, it's a big easement that goes across this. I don't like Matt, you talked about the 90-degree angle.
Yeah, the 9 degree, I mean, you have potential for clogs and sewer, stuff like that, and potentially.
And so that would mean it would back up.
Potentially it could. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of homes there, but it could.
Dave, you mentioned the timeline for this was the summer of '22.
That's correct. That's what we understand, yes.
The part that goes across our property looks like a pretty long run. I mean, is that something they can do over the summer, do you feel like?
Yes, it is. And if I could make a couple minutes, as far as how long we've been working with this developer on this request, it was April 8th, 2020, was the first we were made aware of this request. And it was a different request. They had a different route. That route was one that actually didn't pan out. And as of June, at the end of June, that was the last we heard from the developer on that proposal. That died, and then back in October of 2020, we did hear back from the developer. So from October, we then said, hey, you need to get an appraisal, which is included in the information. The appraisal came back, and what they were proposing was to pay 27, I think it was 27% on the temporary construction easement. I think it was 43% on the value of the permanent utility easement. What we've been paying in the past is 50% and 25%. So to have a starting point, we asked if the developer would consider going to 50% and 25%, which they did. So it changed the value from 27,000 some odd to $30,000.48. And the developer did move the construction time because they originally had proposed that they wanted to do it at the end of the calendar year 21. So that was November, December time frame. And I believe we had mentioned to them that the committee did not, that was a concern. And that so they then proposed the summertime. Thank you.
Dave, how wide an easement is this?
So it's a 20-foot permanent utility easement. Total, it's going to be 40 feet. So 10 feet on either side for a construction easement.
And how would they finish it when they're done? They grass it over, they make it like it was? So if you didn't know, you couldn't tell it was there?
With the exception that they won't be able to put trees, in the permanent utility easement. But we would expect that the trees, would be planted, where they've taken out trees, they need to put trees back in close to that area.
So if the board would not approve this, the developer could still go to the county and start a condemnation?
So
do that?
So that was
they have?
That was mentioned to us. So we went to the county to find out would they be interested in pursuing eminent domain for school property to benefit a subdivision. And of course, it's the Board of County Commissioners' call on that. But the response that we got was that it was not likely that staff would pursue that condemnation of school property for a development.
Yeah, Matt, since you talk about the 90-degree, that's something that their drawers and their people can fix that and just not make it 90, right?
You could, you're getting closer to the parking lot when you do that.
I think it ended up becoming that because originally in December, the first path was even closer to the playground. So like if you're looking at it, that's how I look at it, because that's kind of like the ball field's up here, right? And then it goes over the sidewalk here and then down the side. This just happens to be the same design as where my daughter went to school. So like that's where all the playgrounds are, right here. So they scooted it over because we were like, it's right by the playgrounds. And then that, I think, caused an even bigger 90-degree, because you never had mentioned that before in the first plan.
So even if it's, I don't design these things, but even if there's a 90-degree with the piping system itself, inside that pointed thing could still be a circular thing, allowing it to flow. Can't they?
We usually have a pipe and you have the manhole there. The manhole has a little tray, and that tray flows around that to the other pipe.
It's not that the concrete piece that they're going to put down right in that corner, couldn't that inside it have a circular?
No, not necessarily. No.
So you're saying that
It's usually like
it's a hard 90-degree.
Yeah, it's a curve in it.
Right.
There's a curve, but usually what happens, people put diapers, stuff down the sewer line. It will get.
So they need to make a hole there.
Not necessarily. It's up to the engineers to decide that.
Your microphone.
No, it don't. Yeah, it's really up to the engineers how they want to design that.
But that. in
So
itself,
gentlemen,
from
I just
your-
want to point out that when you turn away from the microphone, no one can hear you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again,
Thank you.
Your knowledge reigns supreme. But that's not a game changer there. You're not saying that 90 degrees would cause such a stir that would not be good, because aren't there a lot of systems that are 90 degrees with that?
Certainly, Union County Public Works is going to review the construction drawings when they are submitted, and review the construction drawings. They will review the construction drawings. And if there's issues that don't meet their standards, of course,
They'll just have to fix it.
they have to fix that.
Okay. All right.
And
Would it come back to us then? If we approve one thing and the county says they want it differently, can we then say no to that?
Well, certainly, if the route is materially
Okay.
different, we
Okay.
certainly would expect that, a new start.
Okay.
And with the easement too, it follows the center line of the line or the pipe, right?
Usually, and
And
theoretically.
if that pipe ever moves to Public Works, the easement also follows the pipe.
That should be the case, and that's what we would expect. Whether there's a slight variation in the field or something like that, I imagine that happens. But
Yeah, being on facilities for 4 years, this is the only one I can remember that kind of split through the property, kind of in between. But on the paper, you do have a floodplain that kind of splits the property anyway.
right, they actually come together about like this. So you've got the sewer line, and you've got it's the drainage feature. So they certainly do cross.
I make a motion that we approve the sale of the land for easement.
Second.
Any comments or questions from board members now that we have a motion and a second? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed say no.
No.
Is that 2?
Did you vote?
Okay, so 3.
Matt voted for. So wait, we don't, who voted yes?
Okay, I'm confused. I thought you voted yes.
You voted no, so it's 4-4. So it fails. Yep.
Okay. Motion fails. That brings us to the Citizen Advisory Committee on Diversity. So first off, I just want to say thank you to all of the community members that applied to serve on the Citizens Advisory Committee for Diversity. And I want to honor the hard work of Reggie Adkins, Sandeep Berry, Selena Campbell, Joseph Ellis, Monique Holt, Thomas LeGrand, Melanie Miller, Kimberly Morris Hansley, Joy Robbins, Alicia Allen, Robert Capers, Sergey Dzik, Emily Adamo, Audrey Ansel, Darby Burgett, Mia Capella, Riley Coyne, Jade Robinson, Olivia Santos, who was with us last month, by the way. Olivia spoke. Rachel Skinner, Ava Tartaglia, Nithya Condetti, Heidi Gonzalez, our principal, Maxie Johnson, Heather Diaz, Mike Helms, Rebecca King, Garrett Malone, Cheryl Mimi, Matt Sides, Ernestine Staton, Amanda Stinchcomb, Staten, thank you, Austin Hansley, Trinity LeGrand, and Uma Ramist. These were community members, one from each cluster that applied. We had members of the faith community. We had 11th and 12th graders that applied. And we allowed any student, we did not limit any student that wanted to participate. We did not cut those applications, and we allowed every student to participate. We had one administrator, Maxie Johnson, and we had 8 employees. So I want to sincerely thank those members for their time. I believe they worked from November all the way through March 2nd, and some of them attended in person last month. Last week on the 27th, this board, after hearing from the Citizens Advisory Committee's presentation at the April meeting, the board met via Zoom with our facilitators, and I want to say a very special thank you to Ms. Christina Lee and Yvette Hall, the founders of Paradigm 360, who facilitated this work with the committee. At the meeting last week, what the board heard were next steps and what they, with their professional expertise, recommended to our board over the next 24 to 36 months to look at process improvements and change management, and to release a formal communication plan. And so what I need tonight is the wishes of this board going forward, because many people viewing the meeting last week did not hear when we said that we would send this to the superintendent and we would send these to all 5 committees. For whatever reason, people did not hear that loud and clear. So I would like for the board to make their wishes known on what to do with the final report that we received last month and finalized with the facilitator last week.
I move that we direct the superintendent to receive and review the Citizens Advisory Committee on Diversity's report and report back to the board with recommendations.
Second.
Are there any comments or questions?
Well, Madam Chair, I did not hear about sending it to the committees.
Well, once it comes back to the full board, then we'll send it to committees.
Okay, I can
Would you
deal with
like
that.
to me do?
I could deal with that.
Okay.
I got you.
I
Or
can
you
put
make
it,
a friendly amendment?
No, I got you. I got you.
Okay.
First wave. I got you. I see where you're headed. I see it.
Are we going to set a timeline for this to be reported back from staff? And I'd like to hear Dr. Houlihan's input.
I would, the floor is open for a friendly amendment.
Well, I'm not going to speak for staff to assign them a timeline without their input.
As you heard Ms. Merrill said, I think one of the things that the consultants or facilitators said that this is a longer term process, 24 to 36 months. So what staff is going to have to do is identify, is there anything short term that the staff believes we need to recommend to the board? Are there other parts of the recommendations that are more longer term? So I don't necessarily this evening can answer that question, Mr. Sides. I think that we will work with board leadership and the board on exactly what that timeline will be. I think we're going to take a deep dive into the report, obviously, this month into June through the summer. But my plan, I guess our plan would be to come back to the board when we're ready. But I'm not sure if I'm ready to put an exact timeline on that tonight.
And will board leadership decide what piece goes to what committee? Because that's,
the way
I'm not sure what's going to be sent where.
it would come back to the full board with the recommendations, and then I assume that Mrs. Merrill would send them to committees.
Yes, we can definitely do that, but committees work with staff, and that staff is his cabinet. And so I think just be prepared that when you work with your cabinet and staff, that you're thinking about committees when you come back to us with a recommendation.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
And my personal preference would be that maybe to hear something by July or August, so that our schools and employees and student bodies can, have first steps towards something to do in the next school year.
That's a very good point. I think the one thing we have to consider is, are there aspects of the report that we need to take advantage of this summer that we could work on with staff and others, right? And so I can't let too much time pass, because if there's board work that needs to be done to approve certain things that we need to take care of during the summer, then July would be my absolute last deadline. So my commitment to the board, if it so pleases you all, is to meet with staff this week, begin building an initial roadmap and timeline with a strong deadline of an update no later than July. That would be my goal. It might not be the full, but at least an update from at a 30,000 foot view, if that so pleases the board.
Now,
Madam Chair.
could I just another quick question? Does the leadership or the administration foresee the Citizens Advisory Committee playing a continued or future role, or are they officially disbanded and discharged?
It was communicated from the beginning. Now, I'm open to anything. I'm one of 9. But it was communicated, just like the Citizens Advisory Committee on Realignment. After they did their work with the consultant and the final report was delivered and presented to the board, that committee didn't meet again. They met for 9 months and they didn't meet again. Once their work was complete, the report was written, it was handed off to the board, and the board worked with staff, and the board made tweaks and changes and voted on realignment. So that was the intent that, and communicated that they would work with the consultant, and that would be it. This was like a 6-month commitment. So, but this is our board, your board. So speak up.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a friendly amendment to the motion, and that is, as soon as Dr. Houlihan and staff, as soon, meaning that when they sit down to have their initial assessment, if there are things that they see that can be done right then and there, as soon as, let's call them actionable items are discovered, they're to be immediately reported back to the chair for dissemination to said committees.
You would like it to say that the superintendent will report back with recommendations in stages if necessary?
Not if necessary, as they find them.
Well, that's what necessary.
No, but I mean, I know verbiage is everything. So I'm just using the verbiage of a more direct term of saying, as they find actionable items, that they report those to the chair so that they can then go to whatever committee, so that committee can be working, and that we don't have to wait for the whole piece, even the July date, but that we can begin working on things that we can do. As I said when we spoke with the facilitators, that they talked about the length of time, but I said, well, there can be things that we can do right now. And of course, they said yes. So I want to stay true to what I said in that setting, that as soon as information is found, if it's determined that it's a facilities thing, it needs to go to the facilities committee so they can begin working on it, finance and so forth and so on.
Good idea.
Put it into motion terms. You want all that in the motion? Yes?
Yes.
I would also like to ask, I believe in last or first draft of the superintendent's budget, there was an allotment or an open space for potential funding for any of these DEI initiatives this budget cycle, which I'm assuming is being, because of it's right upon us, is being closed off for this budget cycle. Is that? No, there's still funding?
Well, we would have to find funding, yes.
So there's nothing in the budget. I know we're getting to the budget later on, but as far as that, as it sits right now, there's not an allotment for funding for any initiatives in this fiscal year's budget, correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. I would also like to suggest, as part of your review, one of the takeaways struck me from the meeting were various UCPS initiatives that are already underway that are flying under the general public's radar. Most notable when Ms. Heintel and Ms. May were talking about the assistance to getting the PTO started at East Elementary. Well, we could build on that as well. If, I mean, I knew something about it, but if I was John Q. Citizen and I didn't have someone involved in East or their particular PTO that was assisting, I might not. And that initiative could be expanded if it's more public. So I think there's also a communication opportunity of the good things we're already doing, as well as what we're looking to undertake. So I'd just like to ask that keep that in mind as well.
What I would recommend, Dr. Houlihan, is for you and your staff to go through the final report and then just make notes off to the side to let us know what you feel like we're doing, and that, or, you know, what needs to be done, what's currently been done, or where to go to access that information. If the public doesn't know we're already doing that, I would just encourage you to go through the report and just off to the side, make notes from you and your team. And I think that would be very helpful going forward towards a formal communication plan so that the community knows that this exists.
What I'd like to do, I agree with you, Ms. Merrill. What I'd like to do is actually provide the board in writing our analysis of what was recommended, where we have identification of alignment of some strategies, initiatives currently underway, and those that are in development and those that are more longer term. And that will be the work that we'll have to do. In the short term, immediate, based on the motion, if there are items that we would like to go to committee, we will point that out into that report. And my goal with that kind of a document would be to secure that for this board. I would like to say within the next month. But that will take analysis on staff to begin doing that. We've already begun a little bit of that, but we need to take a deeper dive. So that would be my goal, to be honest.
Maybe it would be helpful if you could provide to the board your anticipated timeline and not necessarily fill in. I mean, I'm not going to hold you to a hard date, but if it would be helpful to me anyway to see a timeline of your process of addressing this, an initial expectation when this would go to committee, and then the longer term projects, an expectation of that as well. That might be helpful to see, to address Jimmy's concerns about where there are things we can look at right away.
That's
and more midterm and more longer term. That would be helpful to me.
That's correct. We're trying to build a bit of a roadmap here,
right,
to look at immediate, kind of short term, longer term, and that's what I'd like to propose as a next step. That after we unpack the recommendations, that become one of staff's next steps.
I would think that there'd be stuff going on over the summer so that we're prepared for the teacher work days at the beginning of the next school year, especially if we were going to roll some stuff out.
That is correct.
Madam Chair, I know that it was expressed that after their work was completed, that I guess the diversity committee dissolves, but is it a way that they can continue to do work? I'm not sure how we can keep it going. But I think that's a group of individuals that's very diverse, that has a lot to offer. As they mentioned, they never said that things were terrible, but they were just giving some insight on how we can improve. And so I think that if we could continue to keep that group alive, some type of way where they can partner with, I'm not sure how it'll look, but so it will not just be done with, or we be finished with that group. I think we need to continue that group some type of way, because it is a very much needed group, because it makes up individuals from all across this county who have I believe, a heart for this community and for this county and for this school board.
May I suggest that you might want to offer an amendment to the motion to ask staff to look at the opportunities
sir.
for that?
I would
committee?
do that because keep in mind, half of the people on this list are going to graduate and no longer be here.
Right.
And then you're going to have staff members that may or may not be able to continue
Yeah.
and may need to delegate another principal, another TA, another bus driver.
Yeah.
So I think and keep in mind too, the spirit of the Citizens Advisory Committee was because we had a contract with a facilitator.
Right.
That contract has ended,
Mhm.
and the work with that facilitator has been finalized as of today.
And as
Right.
as Mrs. Merrill mentioned earlier, we did this for the CAC for realignment. And once everything was turned over, the committee didn't exist anymore. And we kind of moved on with the recommendations. We talked to the facilitators and we moved on with that. So it's kind of the way we've done citizens advisory councils.
But what I think we could do, and I'm so sorry to cut you
No,
off,
go
I'll let
ahead.
you go next.
Go ahead.
But what I think we can do is allow Dr. Houlihan and staff to go through this, and perhaps they can recommend, because I know that Dr. Houlihan has his principal advisory meetings, he has his parent advisory committees, he has his teachers advisory committees, he has his student advisory committees. So I will wait. For me, I would like to hear back from Dr. Houlihan and staff on how he can use his existing committees to work with the students, the teachers, the principals, the parents with his existing committees.
Right.
And I know that annually, the teachers, I can't remember if they rotate annually or biannually.
It's annually. Some repeat because they want to volunteer every year, but it is an annual commitment.
And so maybe just an idea, and then the student advisory committee changes annually. I
Right.
did want to put that out there. And so I think that would potentially be a great resource. And then your parent advisory committee does come one per cluster, like they come from cluster. But I think that is an existing model that could be used to go forward to continue this conversation. But the people that applied last year to the Strategic Planning, Technology, Transportation Committee, they applied to work with a facilitator for this purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That work is now complete. We have received their final presentation and a final report. But I will leave it to Dr. Houlihan and his team to bring a recommendation if they would like to utilize his existing advisory committees to start a new one or pull one from each and put
Collection.
together a committee.
How many are members do you have in your teachers advisory and your student advisory groups?
Teachers is 53. It's one from every school.
Oh, well, I think that's a pretty big group.
And students is, I believe, 3 from every high school.
Okay.
In years past, it's been up to 5 this year because all of them were virtual. And managing a virtual setting like that with that many students is, we've had 3 per high school.
And I believe your parent advisory committee was kind of put on hold this year because of COVID.
We met quarterly, but we met virtually. We normally would meet in face to face, but we had one per cluster.
I guess I envisioned, in my personal experience, has been a little bit different. Well, both models. Prior to coming on the board, I served on the Special Needs Advisory Council for the EC department. And it was an ongoing group selected for the free flow of information back and forth on various topics. A parent might have something to bring to the attention. The EC department might have something they want to run by the groups. There were teachers, there were parents, and of course the EC staff there. So I kind of envision that model being useful because I see redistricting as kind of a event, and I see this as a process. And so I guess I envisioned ongoing work. But
Well, and
I'll just leave
Sure.
that to staff to feel
And I
like
think-
what you best to work with.
I call them feedback structures. Ms. Merrill has mentioned the ones that are in place. Mr. McGraw has one with the safety committee, which are stakeholders that come and meet with him. These are the things that staff have to unpack. And as soon as we're ready to report back on such structures that might be current or a new one we want to add based on input, that's the kind of information that we'll be coming back to the board with when we're prepared with at least with an initial report.
Madam Chair, the motion.
I'm sorry.
I made a motion.
Okay. And we have a second?
What was your motion exactly?
I had a friendly amendment to the motion
What was the friendly amendment?
that they report back as they find actionable items.
Okay, that sounds a lot better, what you had earlier.
What sounded better?
Well, that sounded a lot better than what he had earlier.
I know the law.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
No, that was explaining the motion. The motion earlier was the same as I just said.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, the friendly
Who
amendment.
made the second? Okay, thank you, Mr. Price. Okay, so we've had lots of discussion. I think we have clear direction. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 8-0. That brings us to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is Staff Appreciation Week. This week is a very special week for Union County Public Schools. We are celebrating our 5,000 employees who make this school system an absolutely great place for our students to learn and earn a quality education. I want to thank every employee for his or her dedication, service, and support. Believe me, when we visit schools, when we're meeting virtually, whatever that might be, and departments, we all see the work that you're doing, and we're all extremely appreciative, and please hear that it is not unnoticed. We started the week with National Principals Day on May 1st. Today is National Teacher Day across the nation, and we will honor our nurses on Thursday, May 6th. Board members, please join me at this time giving a round of applause to celebrate all of Team UCPS. Last Thursday, we announced our new Teacher of the Year and beginning Teacher of the Year with a virtual celebration. We want to say again, congratulations to Hannah Park of Porter Ridge Elementary, who is our Teacher of the Year, and Dylan Chavis of Porter Ridge High, who is our beginning Teacher of the Year. Both are Union County Public Schools graduates. Our book drive ends this Friday. The books are rolling in, and I want to thank our staff, parents, students, and community members who have donated to our book drive. As a reminder, the drive ends this Friday. You still have time to donate. Please check the UCPS website or social media pages for the locations. Our mobile book bus will be back in action in our community in June. The schedule and additional information will be posted on our website and social media pages at that time. And finally, once again, UCPS teams are back in the state playoffs. I want to give a big shout out to our student athletes and coaches. Congratulations to the Piedmont, Marvin Ridge, and Porter Ridge softball teams, ladies softball teams, and the Cata, Cuthbertson, Marvin Ridge, and Porter Ridge girls soccer teams who are currently in the midst of a playoff run. So congratulations. Board members, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Houlihan. And so now we have a one-time payment for all staff. I will turn that over to our CFO, Shawna McLam.
Good evening, Board. In your packet, you have a memo that details out that came from Finance Committee. We've discussed doing a one-time payment for all staff of $800. We've currently been working with Union County staff, and they've indicated that there's some potential for some one-time revenues that we could utilize. So we will make a request to them to match $2.5 million for us to be able to pay all staff an $800 bonus as of, if you were employed as of April 30th. Does anybody have any questions? The criteria is all detailed out there too. Or is there any questions about any of that?
I make a motion to approve the $800 one-time payment for all UCPS employees, and there's no second needed because it came out of finance.
Okay.
What?
Sorry? I'm sorry, you said a one-time payment to all employees? You didn't
Yes.
say a dollar amount, right?
$800. Yep, I did.
Well, there's full-time and part-time.
Oh, you're right.
It's hours we need to,
Okay, so for full-time employees who are over 30 hours or more, they get, and they've been with us since before November 1 of 2020, they get 800. If they started with us after November or on or after November 2nd, 2020, they get 400. If you're permanent part-time, which is less than 29 or less per week, you would get $400 if you were employed prior to November 1st, 2020, and 200 if you got it if you employed with us after November 2nd. When would these be paid out?
These would be in the final payout in May, for the May payroll.
Okay.
I would like to second that with a friendly amendment to make it concurrent with the county commissioner's vote, which I think is Monday, correct? For their portion?
It is subject to the county commissioners.
Okay.
Yes, subject to
Right.
the county commissioners vote. I believe it's Monday.
With that, I would second.
I don't have, I know we will make the request. I'm not sure if it'll be on their Monday. I think they are going to try to put it on an agenda for a work session they have.
Okay.
It's my understanding.
So we can't pay it out until the county commissioners approve it.
Right, but our payday is at the end of May, so as
Okay,
long, so
perfect.
we'll start pulling it together and start
Perfect.
working on some of that, so we will be ready to do that.
Okay, great.
And this memo is on our board docs for anyone in the public who would like to see it broken out, by detail. Okay, so again, it came from committee, and all those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous, 8-0.
Ms. Merrill, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, please.
I just want to say to the full board, on behalf of our entire team, thank you for this action this evening. Our employees have gone above and beyond during a time of a pandemic and global pandemic and in the midst of a lot of chaos. And this is a wonderful gesture on behalf of the board that you've done tonight. And I just want to say on behalf of our team, thank you for your leadership and thank you for your support. This is a great way to begin our staff appreciation week. So on behalf of our senior team, thank you.
You're very welcome and much deserved, and I wish we could offer even more to our Union County public school employees. And I would also like to say a very special thank you to the county for being such a good partner with Union County Public Schools and for matching, $2.5 million with our $2.5 million. So, thank you to our county manager, Mark Watson, and to Michelle Lancaster. She and I spoke this afternoon, and I just want to say on behalf of our Board of Education and on behalf of our 5,000 employees, how much we appreciate the county supporting this effort to recognize our employees that have truly gone above and beyond the school year. So we really, really appreciate their support.
Hear, hear.
Okay, with that, we will move to the 2021-22 proposed budget. Ms. McLean.
I'm going to begin very quickly by saying tonight I am pleased to present, along with Ms. McLam, our 2021-22 budget recommendation. I want to thank the members of the Finance Committee and the Facilities Committee who have worked with our staff throughout the year to really look at what I believe is a robust budget request that is encompassing of many of the needs of our school system. And if approved and then subsequently approved in full by the Board of County Commissioners, will position Union County Public Schools not only to become or to remain one of the top tier, most desired places of employment and for families to come to have their children enrolled, but to rise even further. This puts us in a wonderful position moving forward. And I just want to thank both committees as well as the county staff who have worked with us on a weekly basis on our budget ideas and our recommendations. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to Ms. McLam, and she will go through the presentation, and then we'll have questions at the end. Thank you.
So as Dr. Houlihan said, we have put together a budget request for you all tonight. A lot of this we did discuss in our work session, so I wanted to go through some of the changes that we've made from your feedback. Our budget priorities remain the same. We're, to sustain operations is a big task for us to do on an annual basis. Investing in our employees is something that we maintain and want to continue doing. Any expansions or any new initiatives that we have, and investing in our future, which is all of our capital requests. Again, all of our operational needs, we've detailed out and discussed several times, as well as a lot of our compensation and supplement requests that we've been working towards the last several years. We do have a few additional items in an expansion to increase months of employment for our high school athletic directors, as well as a cyber position, and then many of our facilities and transportation technology needs as well. So this is our current operating request. From the last time that you all have seen this, there have been some additional redirects identified, as well as there has been the addition of the request to have the average bus driver salary increase added to the compensation for investing in our employees. They weren't part of our compensation request for the year that we're requesting currently, but you all felt that you wanted to also include them in this year's request. This brings our total request to $114 million. The detail of what our mandatory requests are right now is right at $4.7 million. The compensation and other items that we have built in here is about 5.4, which brings you all the way to, with the redirects and other items, to that 114 number, which is right at $8 million more than we requested than we were funded last year. Does anybody have any questions about any of these slides before I move on to capital? Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little disappointed not to see the two columns. I would like to have the operating, you prepared a document for us last week changing this portion so that you could see what the mandated column was that we have no control over.
Right.
And the additional request. I would like to have this updated so that it's very clear to anyone who reads this what is mandated from the state, and then our additional requests break out those two columns. The document you prepared last week.
That I prepared would be part of what I was going to put with our budget request that goes straight to the county. It gets hard to amend the slides on the presentation, so that was going to be one of how we would submit the request directly to staff, if that's okay with you. I mean, instead of updating the presentation slides, it's going to be part of the packet.
So just so everybody knows on the board, can you go back to the first slide? So under number 2, all the sustaining operations are mandatory. The next, which is 3A, is all mandatory, 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
And then you go to the next page, and the $1 million under 4A, the charter schools, are all mandatory.
Yeah.
So that's the 4.738741.
So I just want to be clear, even though it's on the presentation,
my document that we submit to the county, the budget request will have that as an addendum, so that they can see that broken out on the actual documentation.
Okay,
yes.
Please.
Yes.
Let's go back to the document you prepared last week, and tomorrow, could you please make sure that every board member has a copy of that document? Sure. Because I know Mr. Price and Ms. Hontail, our county liaisons, met with the county last week, and they've seen it. But I want to make sure that document goes to the board members so that they can see the two columns.
Mm-hmm.
So just so everybody knows, we have $4.738 million worth of mandatory increases. Our total amount between the redirect and the amount that the county is giving us above and beyond last year is $5.5 million.
Yes.
So basically, the money from the county and some of our redirects pay for the mandatory stuff and not much more.
Correct.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. 3D, where it says bus driver salary increase, average $1 per hour.
Yes.
Does that mean they all get $1 per hour?
Well, I built it as an average. We can do a schedule if you all had some desire to build it in. We've done in the past where depending on how many years of experience, we would vary that increase. So I did build it on an average so that we could have those discussions.
I think in the past, we had done like 75 cents, $1, $1.25, depending on how many years you had been.
Right.
Is that how you?
That's how we modeled it,
Okay.
yes. If there's, are we okay to move on to capital?
Yes,
Okay. So with the capital, there was some addition or some changes that came from facilities. This slide has been updated to reflect any changes by category that the facilities committee updated in the CIP. It does you will see I did remove the projection refresh, which we are currently discussing how we can maybe fund that in other ways, but that has been taken off of this request to bring our total capital request to 19.5 million.
But we think we'll be able to find a way to fund the projection.
It will be in a different way.
Right.
Yes, but and the criteria will have to be very strict. But yeah, we are looking at maybe using some of our ESSER funds. If it is directly impacting or a direct impact of COVID and it directly impacts instruction and it does not function, then we can address some of the failing devices we have. It will be modeled a little different than our current projection refresh.
I didn't want the principals and the teachers to think that we weren't going to do it like we didn't do it last year. So I just want to make sure. Are we going to be able to get a list of what schools are going to get them based upon the criteria you just?
So the criteria, so what we would need to do is send out another assessment. I've talked with Jay Parker about sending the schools and having them identify what classrooms. We would go out and verify that those devices are not working and start building it from there to identify what we truly need to replace and what's just not working out in the schools, what technology we need to look at.
Okay. How does the process work on that? After you've identified that, do you have to do some type of grant application to send off to be able to apply those funds? Or are they already sitting somewhere and you just have to go justify them and go get them?
So we are currently working on our application and are looking to include some technology needs in that application. So if we do identify some things and we have funding available, we can utilize them for that. We did verify that we could do that as long as it was related to COVID or something directly related to instruction. Once we build that together, once we put all that together and identify what the needs are, then we will determine what procurement process we need to follow. Do we need to do an RFP? We have standards already, so we'll have to just work through that procurement piece and you all would see all those things as we bring them back to you.
Because we did have a plan for 5 years. So I would hope that the first thing for the year 2 is what we're in, correct? So I would think that we would first look at those schools that were on that list to see what would meet the criteria that you're discussing so that we weren't doing it completely all over.
Well, I don't think we're going to do it completely all over, but I think some things probably have shifted since we did have a gap year.
Okay.
So we really need to assess, are there some now that have taken priority over because they weren't failing, maybe we pushed them off, and now we really need to address them because they're not working in the classroom.
Okay, as long as we're still looking at the schools. I get that some will come, okay.
Yes.
So it may be more than what was originally thought in the budget process because you're going back and reassessing.
No, we only have a certain amount of money that we could, so we're going to have to see and come to you all and discuss that.
But even at that, could that be bigger than the pot of money
Yes.
we originally had?
We
in the
don't have
budget?
enough funds available to identify any more than that 1.2 to 1.5 range
So it's going
to
to be
address
similar
this.
to what we were
Yes.
going to budget anyway.
Yes.
What's your timeline for the application process?
It's due Friday.
It's due when?
Friday.
Oh.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, we have to send it back to DPI on Friday. So
We have not gotten an update on the ESSER funds or the COVID funds recently, so it would probably be good to look at them because we got 17 million. I know that we're setting aside 9 to 9.5 million for the summer programs. But, and I know that there's different things to look at in there, but we've already spent it and all we can do is the $1,250,000 for the.
we haven't spent, I've been doing some budget planning. We're going to submit the application this week. I'll give you all a COVID funding update. Once we get all that approved and back, we have a lot in there for the summer program. So once we have pulled all that together, I will give you all, come back to you all with an update. But we're focused on getting the application done so we can get the funding here for the summer program.
Right.
And then that funding can be amended however we need to. So this is just our initial budget submission.
Because it'll have to go back to finance and the full board
Correct.
for approval.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the funding summary, right now with the changes that we've made, the submission that we will send to the county would be requesting an additional $5.7 million over last year. If you look at a combination of county operating and capital budgets. The other thing that I did add a graphics and statistical section that pulled all of the graphs and other items that we've had in multiple presentations just as an addendum. So they'd all be together for you all to have several of those things in one place for reference.
One of the supplemental documents that I know has really struck a chord with this board and the county was the breakdown of the teacher supplements for the 100. And so I just want to.
That's in here. All of those from our work session with the joint session we had. A lot of the graphs that I pulled together for our work session, I pulled all those together, and they're all here. And I will have full size of those as well to put in our budget submission. But I put them here just again for reference from other presentations that we have.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that's all for this, because that's all that's left are those supplemental documents. Do you all have any other questions about the budget submission?
So I move to adopt the fiscal year 22 proposed budget to send to the Board of County Commissioners. And this came through finance, so it doesn't require a second.
Could I ask a question before we vote, just on process, not on the actual budget? We had discussed the opportunity to have a joint meeting or a presentation in front of the commissioners. Is anything along those lines going to happen? Or are we basically just going to send this over? And
So we met with I thought that we had decided that we were going to go with the liaisons to the county instead of a joint, that was what their suggestion was. So we met with the county manager and the deputy county manager last week. Dr. Houlihan was there and Todd and I were there. And we talked for about an hour and a half about our budget and our priorities and what we need to get done.
And I also invited board members and especially Mr. Price and Ms. Hontail to consider attending the County Commissioners workshop on May 10th at 3:00 in the Government Center. Maybe you missed that, but I know Todd and Kathy are going to try to be there as the county liaisons, but any board member who is available on May 10th, any one of us could be there to answer questions during their work session.
after it's submitted to the county now, are there any plans for Dr. Houlihan to meetings with Mr. Watson or the liaisons to follow up after this budget workshop?
So at a staff level, there's commitment both with our administration and their administration to continue our every other week virtual meetings. We've been doing that since around February-ish, I believe. That is going to continue leading through this month. And I will assure the board that if there's any staff feedback that we need to take account of on either side, I will certainly let you all know.
Well, it's been my experience in the past that we make a presentation, but we don't get a whole lot of feedback, and they need time to digest it. And by the time the comments come out, they usually come out at their budget meeting, and it's not a flow of information. So I was just, do we have any feedback that we feel can feel positive that this budget is going to fly?
We had a great meeting with the county manager and the deputy county manager, and we're working toward things that we can talk about. Do we know that we're going to get everything? I don't know that. But we all are working together between staff and boards to try to get there.
So I guess it's too early to see if they have any specific questions about the items, because I would take it you were talking more in generalities. So
They
now they'll see hard
asked a
numbers.
lot of questions at our meeting, and we answered those questions. And in the meetings that you have, you answer their questions too with regard.
And again, like you already stated, in years past, when we have, scheduled a joint meeting, it really hasn't been productive.
Mhm.
But from my perception of what has been going on staff to staff and with our liaisons and the county commissioners, it does appear that things have been going very well. Conversations are being had, questions and answers are being handled. And when I spoke to Mrs. Lancaster this afternoon, again, she reiterated that she thought their meeting went very well last week, and they're just waiting for us to send it over. And we will continue. And I expressed to her, when we send this over, please let us know if you have any questions, if the county commissioners have any questions, if Mr. Watson has any questions. If I don't know the answer, you call me, I'll go get you the answer. And again, I just want to say, if questions come up at their work session on May 10th, any of us could be there to answer it for them.
I in the past, and I think even more now in this budget, we've made earnest attempts to increase the local supplements to stay competitive for our good teachers and staff. And I hope if Ms. Lancaster or anyone from the county is watching right now, I hope that this is the year that we'll be able to make some significant progress in this area, because we have, as we have shown and will show in the documentation, we are falling behind. And that means we're going to have a retention issue for the best talent that can go elsewhere for better remuneration. So particularly of this budget, I am hopeful that they will be able to honor those requests for supplement increases.
I think that they're looking at anything. I think that the fact that they gave us $2.5 million, are talking about giving us $2.5 million for bonuses for our entire staff this year goes a long way. And we did have those discussions with them at the last meeting, and we have it with them at our meeting. And I am sure that Mrs. McLam and Dr. Houlihan talk about it when they meet with the county staff as well.
And Gary, not only did we talk about getting the supplement where it needed to be, but we also talked about keeping it at that level going forward. So the county's aware of what our needs.
That's true. When I spoke with Ms. Lancaster, she and I agreed that once we get it to a certain point that, we need to have like an annual update, and we need to put together a package, a plan going forward. Like we do what we can do this year and put together a plan on how, to keep Union County Public Schools, the best place to come live and work.
Well, that's very encouraging that they would make those kind of comments, because as we can all imagine, it's a lot easier to take little bites every year or every other year, or rather have to come back in 5 years and swallow the big fish. So that's very encouraging to hear that they are sounding like they are committed to a long-term strategy of keeping our pay for our good staff competitive.
And I just want to remind, each one of you as elected officials, feel free, to reach out to our county commissioners and have conversations after tonight, and let them know, please look through this. These are the priorities as I see it. If you have any questions, please call me back, or, let's have this discussion before they call a vote in June. So please reach out to the county commissioners.
And the county manager suggested that as well, one-on-ones with the county commissioners.
So this came from committee, so it doesn't require a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? This budget is now owned by the Board of Education. We thank you for the superintendent's recommendations. Thank you, Mrs. McLam. And we will take it from here and start working with our county commissioners and having those conversations, okay? So it passes 8-0, and that brings us to policies for review.
Good evening, members of the board. Before you have 5 policies for review, as well as 2 administrative guidelines that are attached to 2 of those policies. If you have any questions about any of them, I'm glad to answer those for you. Thank you very much.
Okay, board comments?
I just would like to reiterate Happy Staff Appreciation Week. We appreciate you all. And it's 4 weeks before school's over, so it's awesome.
Yes, I just want to say for our Principals Appreciation Day, Teacher Appreciation Day, and Nurses Appreciation Day, UCPS Employee Appreciation Day. We know this has been an extremely challenging time from last March to tonight. We know that we've all been asked to do things we never could have imagined doing. And we just want our principals, teachers, nurses, custodians, bus drivers, mechanics, if you work for union substitute teachers, teacher assistants, data managers, if you work for Union County Public Schools, just please know how much this board values and appreciates you, whether you get your own special day or not. We thank you all. Are there any other board comments?
Madam Chair, I just want to give a shout out to, Miss Amber Reap and her 7th grade class, and Weddington Middle School, and to Weddington Middle School for hosting me for a whole day of going back to school. And I want you to know that I even raised my hand for a question. And I had a problem with the Chromebook that she set me up with and needed help with it, not from me, but from the mechanics. I had lunch there, met the principal there, had a tour there, and just want to encourage any and all board members, if you get invited to a situation like that, take them up on it and get a different perspective from their view. So thank you, Ms. Reap, and thank you, Weddington Middle School, for your invitation.
Okay, board, now we will have announcements.
The Finance Committee will meet on May 25th at 9 a.m. via Zoom, and the Facilities Committee will meet May 20th at 9 a.m. in the PDC.
The Strategic Planning, Information Technology, and Transportation Committee is scheduled to meet May 26th at 7:30 here at the PDC.
And I have policy meeting May 28th at 9 o'clock via Zoom.
And curriculum will be May 20th at 11 o'clock here at the I worked in reverse. The curriculum meeting will be May 20th here at the PDC at 11 o'clock. If there are no other announcements, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.